In this video, we're going to cover PS3 emulation through RPCS3 on PC. So RPCS3 continues to improve day after day, and at this point of me making this video, compatibility for PlayStation 3 software has raised to around 70%, give or take a few percentages there. And as long as you have a decent PC, you can take advantage of playing PS3 games on it very well. Like, it's a truly fun experience, and I enjoy it more than using the real console these days. But that being said, getting it set up can be a daunting task for newcomers, which is why I'm hoping to make this video to help you get just the process started more easily for you. But let's go ahead and dive in. Now, before we get started, we need to talk about PC power requirements. You need to have a good desktop processor, you need to have a good graphics card if you have any hope of emulating PS3 games at anything near playable speeds. According to RPCS3's own recommended requirements, you want to have an Intel Skylake, so that is Intel 6000 series or higher, with 6 or more cores, and if you're an AMD user, you want to have an AMD 3000 series or higher with 6 cores or more. And as with all emulators, high IPC is a must, so that is why they don't recommend the Threadrippers in the 1000 or 2000 series, because while they have a lot of cores, they don't have very good IPC compared to just the 3000 and 5000 series. And then, of course, if your CPU supports AVX 512 instruction sets, you're going to get an even bigger performance boost out of it. Now, on the GPU side, things are a little bit more lax. You just need to have an RX 400 or newer, or a GTX 900 series or newer. So, I mean, these have been around for quite a while, so if you have a GPU from the last 5 years, you should be relatively okay. Then as for RAM, make sure you have 8 gigabytes or more, and then for storage, make sure you just have decent sized storage. This is a PS3 emulator, so you will have to do mandatory installs for PS3 games like you would on a real console, so this will start eating up a considerable size of hard drive space as you continue to use it. Now, if you are wanting to do this on laptops, just make sure that you have something that is a high performance, not an ultra low voltage CPU, so anything in the H range is what you're looking for here. 8 core, 16 thread, and then also having a dedicated GPU. And then make sure that the cooling is really good so that way you don't get thermal throttling that could reduce performance. And with all that being said, let's just go ahead and get the latest release of RPCS3 downloaded. So you can head to the RPCS3 download page here and then download the program for your preferred operating system. So we are covering Windows today, so I'm just going to download that here. And after you have RPCS3 downloaded, we need to grab the latest system software for PlayStation 3. So as of this video, it is 4.89, so we're just going to go ahead and download that update file. And Microsoft is mad about it, I guess, so we're just going to tell it to keep it anyway. There we go, yay! Now, you might also need to download the Visual C++ 2019 redistributable. Chances are you probably already have it, but it doesn't hurt to just grab it again just to make sure. Alright, so first things first, make sure that you have the Visual C++ redistributable installed, so just go ahead and get that. Installed. I can't because I already have it installed, so there we go, yay, all done. Next, we need to extract RPCS3, so this is in 7-zip format. So if you don't have 7-zip installed on your computer, you can find it at the 7-zip website, download it for your operating system, and then you can continue on. But anyway, RPCS3, I'm going to go into the 7-zip context menu and just have it extracted here on my desktop for demonstration purposes. Now again, RPCS3 by default will save all of its folders into itself, so this can become quite a big folder. So you'll want to make sure that you put it on a drive with plenty of storage, because there's some games on PS3 that require 2-3+ gig installs, and that's going to save it all into this folder by default. So for my demonstration, it's going on my desktop. For your purposes, put it in whatever folder you want it in. But I'm going to go ahead and open up this folder. And inside, we can find the RPCS3 executable. So let's just go ahead and launch into it for the first time. And you'll be greeted by a welcome to RPCS3 emulator thingy here. And this is just basically a nice little thing trying to help you get set up for the first time. So it's telling you to refer to the quick start guide and also read their FAQs, and then you can ask for more help on the forums and Discord server. And even if you are following this video, it is very useful to pay attention to that quick start guide. So I do recommend going back and checking that out. But once you're ready, you can just click on I have read the quick start guide, and you can make it so this doesn't pop up again by clicking do not show again, and then press continue. And that brings us to our RPCS3 main screen here. So the first thing you're going to want to do is install the PS3 firmware file that we downloaded. So head up here to File and Install Firmware. Then just navigate to where you have the firmware update stored, select it, and it will install it, and that will get you good to go for PS3 emulation. And after it finishes compiling the modules, we are ready to populate our games list. Now, for PS3 games, they could be in PSN format, or you could actually dump your Blu-ray discs. I have one method of dumping Blu-ray discs on my channel here, using an actual PC Blu-ray drive. There's other methods involving using the actual PS3's Blu-ray drive if you have a modified system. But you just need to acquire PS3 games. How you go about it, I really don't care. Just don't ask me for illegal download links, because I'm not going to give them out. I'm not going to risk my channel for your piracy tendencies. Learn to Google, all that good jazz. But there is one method of using a Blu-ray drive here that I have covered, so go ahead and get your games how you see fit. But to populate our games list, all we need to do is go up to File, Add Games, and then you can navigate to where you have your PS3 games stored. If you want to, you can store them right within the RPCS3 folder. I haven't done that in this tutorial. I have mine stored on a network drive. So I'm just going to navigate to that, so I have them in my RetroNAS server, PS3 folder. Wake up RetroNAS, PS3 NetServe, and then I have them under my games folder, and I'll just select the folder, and my games list will now be populated. So there's all my PS3 games, yay! And then the process for installing digital games is a bit different. I'm going to go over that in a separate video because it's a bit more involved, and I haven't finished my digital game backup video yet. So be on the lookout for a second video that will show how to install your digital titles, but the process is basically going into here and installing the packages and rap sheets right here from this menu. But once you have the game list populated, you could go through and start configuring your controls so you can actually enjoy playing your PS3 games. So you can just click on pads here, and you can assign your PlayStation 3 controls to virtually any device. You can use keyboard, mouse, DualShock 3, DualShock 4, DualSense, Xbox controllers, any X input device. So if you want the most authentic experience possible, you can actually use the PS3 controller for PS3 emulation, and it's really awesome. So again, back on my channel, I have a how to use a DualShock 3 for RPCS3. So if you're interested in using an actual physical DualShock 3 controller for PS3 emulation, I will link this guide below, just like always. So for my video today, I'm going to go ahead and use the DualShock 3. So I'm just going to go into the drop-down box here, select DualShock 3, and then since I've already set up those drivers that I showed off in that video, we can see that my DualShock 3 is configured correctly, and all my buttons are working, my thumbsticks are working. Awesome. So then I'm just going to tell it to save, and I can begin playing my PS3 games. So, just going to load up Metal Gear Solid HD Collection here. Now, when you first load up any PS3 game within RPCS3, it compiles the PPU modules so that way the game can run. Depending on the game, these PPU modules can take quite a while to compile. And after we select a game within Metal Gear Solid HD, it has to compile them for that separate game because it's technically a different application. But it's a thing. It's a process. But after the PPU compilation is done, you can begin enjoying your PS3 games as long as they are compatible. So here we go, Metal Gear Solid 3 from the Metal Gear Solid HD collection running on my PC through RPCS3 with an actual PS3 DualShock 3 controller. And then just a quick demo here of the pressure sensitive buttons working on the DualShock again. Like, it's pretty awesome. Well, I suck at using the pressure sensitivity buttons on the DualShock 3. There we go. Nope. There we go. So, one of the benefits of using an actual DualShock 3. But, anyway, moving on. So, that's one method of playing all your PS3 games. You can go through and just play them and have the PPU compilation happen as needed. Or if you want to just get all the compilation done at once, you're not planning on playing right away, you can go into your file screen here, go down to all titles, and create PPU caches. And this will basically compile all the PPU modules for all the games in your game list, so this can take quite a while depending on how many games you have. And after the long process of PPU compilation finishes, you could just press OK, and now you are able to just load up into any game and not have to worry about the compilation process. But now just a quick example of what happens when you need to install internal game data. So we're just going to load up Metal Gear Solid 4 here. Install all data needed for all acts. Yes. And then the installation process will occur as it would on a normal console, only a lot faster because we are using a much faster storage medium than a Blu-ray disc, so this will not take 16 minutes like it thinks it will. And there we go, installation for all the acts is completed. And if I go into my RPCS3 folder and go over to HDD0, I can see that there is now 8 gigs worth of data inside of it, just like on a real PlayStation. So again, another note about how much hard drive space this can potentially take up. But with basic setup out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about some extra things that you might be interested in here. One of which being the Manage tab. So up here, you can actually create user accounts, so you can have separate users on RPCS3, just like on an actual PS3. So you can just go in, create a user. There we go. And then you can log into it, so that way that is the save file you'll be using, and you could do that for as many people as you want. Next, let's go over some configuration settings for RPCS3. So if you head to the configuration menu, you have your CPU options, your GPU options, audio, I/O, system, network, advanced, emulator, and GUI. But starting with CPU, it's best just to leave pretty much everything on default. But some options you might be interested in are to enable the SPU loop detection and increase AVX512 instruction width. Both of these can increase performance depending on your CPU. But do note that if your CPU gets downclocked by the full width of the AVX512 instructions, you might be better off just leaving this one unchecked. So I mean, try your games with it on and try them with them off. Then under the GPU tab, we could choose our renderer. I'd recommend just leaving it on Vulkan for best performance. Choose your aspect ratio, a frame limiter, anisotropic filtering, and anti-aliasing. Then we have Z-call accuracy. I just recommend leaving this on precise. You can check per game settings if you can lower this and be fine and get better performance out of it. Next up, default resolution, so you can increase your resolution that your games are outputting in, so you can go up to 1920 by 1080, 720, and anything in between. It's recommended to leave it at 720 because every PS3 game supports this output resolution, only a few support actual native 1080p. On your games list, you can see which resolutions are supported per game, so you can base your decision off of this list, and again, you can set this on a per game basis. And then if you want to upscale your games, you can mess with the resolution scale, so you could slide the slider here and it will tell you what resolution you will now be running at. So if you want to go up to full 4K, you could give it a shot. And the resolution scale, you could choose which type of textures will be up-resed. Anything greater than what is selected will be up-res, so the default is 16 by 16, so that should up-res most everything for you. And then you could also enable FSR for your upscaling. Now for additional settings, we're not going to mess with a lot of these, we're going to do them per game, but you can enable things like VSync. If you have a 3D monitor, you could mess with 3D stuff. But if you have a really powerful CPU and GPU, you might be interested in enabling multi-threaded RSX and asynchronous texture streaming. This can increase performance if you have the right hardware. If you enable these options and get worse performance, that means that you just need to turn them back off. Next up, audio. You can choose your audio output format. QBEB is just fine. You could do X audio, shouldn't matter a whole lot. Then you can choose your audio format, so if you have a 5.1 or 7.1 system attached to your computer, you can enable that option to use it, and then you can select the supported formats. Then you can enable a microphone, set your volume levels, buffer sizes, everything like that. should be fine for most everyone at the default settings. Next up, I/O. So this is where you're going to be able to change a bunch of different input options. So you can enable keyboard support for games that supported a keyboard, mouse support, PlayStation Move. This is not quite implemented for real controllers yet, but you can set your mouse to use it. Camera, so you could choose a webcam to use. Camera input, buzzers, DJ Hero controllers, Guitar Hero controllers. So if you're playing any of those specific games, this tab might be of interest to you. Next up, system. So you can choose your console language, console region, whether your enter button is cross or circle, disk cache size, and then you can have it clear the cache automatically, keyboard type, and then console time. Next up, network tab. This won't be the most useful tab for a lot of people, but you can enable an emulated network and set a simulated PSN status. Anyway, advanced tab, we're not going to be messing around in here unless we absolutely need to on a per game basis, so we'll just skip over to the emulator tab. So here's where you'll be able to start your games in full screen if you choose. You can automatically start games after booting up, lock mouse cursor in full screen, show mouse cursor, ignore double clicks. You can enable a performance overlay so you can see how well your games are running. If you don't want to have pop-ups for when it's compiling shaders in the bottom left, you could disable that. You could disable trophy pop-ups if you don't want to see them. So there we go. And then finally, for the GUI settings, you could choose to have a bright theme, a dark theme. You can customize colors. You can choose whether or not you can look for updates. Discord rich presence, so it'll show you what you're playing in Discord if you enable this option. And then your installation ID, but there we go. So, like I said, we're not going to be messing with too much in this menu. Most of it's going to be on a per game basis. And I do recommend setting up your per game settings because it will help you get more of your games up and running. So you can head over to the RPCS3 wiki. I'll have a link to this in the description below. But you could go through and find the games that you are hoping to play, and if they're compatible, they should have settings in here that could possibly help you out. So, for example, GoldenEye 007 Reloaded, that's just one I know I have in my games list that I could check out real quick. So, nothing in that one. Okay, never mind. Okay, so here we go. Metal Gear Solid HD Collection. If I turn on Read Color Buffers, it should fix the shadow problems that are on the main menu. And then I can set the network adapter to connected and simulate PSN status to fix something in Peace Walker. So going back into RPCS3, I could right click on Metal Gear Solid HD Collection, and there is a Create Custom Configuration button right here, and that lets us go in and change everything up. So I'm going to go over to the GPU tab, and I'm going to turn on Right Color Buffers. And then in the Network tab, I'm going to connect it and simulate my PSN status. And I'm going to save that custom configuration. And then I'm going to test it out on Metal Gear Solid 3. And there we go. We can see on the main menu already that there is a lot less graphical glitches on it. Not 100% as you can see, but definitely much better than it was. Alright, sorry about that. My computer decided it was going to just take a dump there and get rid of my desktop background. That's awesome. Thanks, Windows. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and create a custom configuration for Metal Gear Solid 4 because this is the one that I really want to get running on RPCS3 the most. So, I can set a frame limit to 60 FPS, Z-call accuracy relaxed, right color buffers on, although it says not to use that at the moment, so we'll leave that one off. Accurate RSX reservation access on, firmware library switch to LLE, blah blah. Alright, so going back into RPCS3, right-click on Metal Gear Solid 4, create custom configuration. So under GPU configuration, let's see here. It wanted me to go with, so Z-call accuracy, relax to improve performance. We can mess with that if we actually get the game booting. Frame limit to 60. And then not to use right color buffers at the moment. Alright, so there we go. And then under advanced, accurate RSX reservation access. We'll need to enable that. Firmware libraries, switch to LLE. So where's that at? Alright, so we're looking for libvdec, which was right here. There we go. RSX FIFO accuracy. Want that set to atomic. And V-blank rate to 40. There we go. And then we'll save that custom configuration. And then it also wants us to apply some patches. So if you head up into, so if we right click on Metal Gear Solid again, we can see that there is a Manage Game Patches tab here. So click on this. Let's see if it actually has them in the latest patches now. So you can click download latest patches. Patch file's already up to date. All right, so this one has not been updated. So going back into the RPCS3 wiki, you can see if there is a patches section. You can click on expand here. But it wants us to use the Canary ones, so we can just go in here and apply these ones. So go ahead and select everything that is within the Canary patch section here for Metal Gear. We're going to copy that. And now, according to the documentation on how to add custom patches, I'm just going to open up Notepad here real quick. And it wants us to put version 1.2 as the first line. Hit enter, move to the next line, then paste our patch. So there we go, paste there. And ensure that the formatting is the same as it was on the wiki page, which it is. There we go. So that is good to go. And now we're going to save the file. And we're going to put it into our RPCS3 folder. Patches folder. And we're going to name it imported_patch.yml. And save. Then I'm just going to close out of that. And now back in RPCS3, I'm going to right click on Metal Gear Solid 4. I'm going to go to Manage Game Patches. And there are now listed patches for the last 3 firmware revisions, 4.87, 4.88, and 4.89. So in my tutorial, I installed 4.89, so I'm going to enable that one and click on Apply. So now when I boot into Metal Gear Solid 4, I'm using the best known configuration with the fix that should make it so the game is playable. And the moment of truth. There we go, Metal Gear Solid 4 now playable in RPCS3. And performance is going to be very dependent on your CPU and GPU, as always, when it comes to emulation. But there we go. So if you're playing the game with an actual DualShock 3, you will be able to use all of the original functionality. So like Octo Camo, I can shake my controller to clear it. It'll come back. I can shake my controller to clear it. So full functionality is available within the game while being emulated if you set up the DualShock 3. So there you have it. By utilizing the RPCS3 wiki and per game options, you should be able to get most of your compatible games up and running. But besides adding game patches on your own, there are a number available for most games. So if you go into any of your games, right click, manage game patches, download latest patches. If your game has a patch already available, you should be able to find it here. Otherwise, you might just have to add it manually like I did for Metal Gear. So unfortunately, these ones are not cooperating. Let's try Killzone 3. I already downloaded one for Killzone 3. There we go. So I downloaded the latest patch. And it gave me these options here. So update version, disk version 1.0, update version 1.114. So you can have infinite ammo, extend the FOV, and disable post-processing. And then on the latest patch, you could skip the intro too, which is pretty nice. But that's going to cover it for basic setup. I'm going to cover game updates in a separate video, as well as digital title installation. But this video is just trying to get you up and running with the basics so you can get your Blu-ray disc version games up and running, get some per game settings up and running, and get some problematic games up and running using Canary patches. But thank you so much as always for checking out this video. I hope it helps you get your emulation projects up and running. But I do have a couple of big favors to ask here at the end. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to hit that like, dislike button, just depending on how much you like today's tutorial. And if you haven't done so already, hit that sub and notification bell so you can see when new videos go live on the channel. Loads of content coming your way, and I'd love to have each and every one of you along for the ride. For anyone interested in further helping support the channel, you can also check out that join button here on YouTube or the Patreon link in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. Little goes a long way to keeping this place up and running and bringing all of this content to you. Big shout out to all of our current backers. Thank you so much for believing what we do and helping us keep it going. But until next time, my wonderful internet peeps, you all stay awesome, keep on gaming, and we'll see you back next video.